A Russian woman filmed how seriously wounded Russian occupiers are sent back to the combat zone. Soldiers from the 104th Airborne Assault Regiment, many of whom cannot walk normally and are on crutches, are being forcibly returned to the front. My heart sinks. Our guys are being sent back to the Special Military Operations Zone by order of the commander of the 104th Airborne Assault Regiment, Alexey Tolmachev. Many have not yet recovered from their wounds. Some are still on crutches. Some with a bandaged arm. How painful it is to see them leaving without having time to recover, said the Russian woman who filmed the events. This video confirms that the practice known as crippled regiments is gaining momentum in the Russian armed forces. Russian command is increasingly returning soldiers with disabilities who have not completed their treatment to the front. Their chances of surviving in combat are minimal. But the Kremlin, which is experiencing an acute shortage of manpower, continues to resort to this brutal measure. The 104th Airborne Assault Regiment is part of the 76th Airborne Division of the Russian Federation, known for its crimes against Ukraine. Since 2014, the regiment has participated in aggression, in particular in the seizure of Ukrainian drilling rigs in the Black Sea and in the occupation of Donbass. In 2022, the regiment took part in the offensive on Kiev. It suffered catastrophic losses, including the loss of at least 4 battalion commanders. Earlier, media reported that a video of occupiers being sent to storm the city on crutches had appeared on the internet. A Russian man filmed how undertreated Russian soldiers on crutches under military police escort were forcibly shoved into a truck to be sent to the front. The man does not hide his indignation. This is complete. Look how the guys are leaving for war, who shouldn't be going. The VPs are just pushing them into a Kamaz. A man with crutches. They're breaking him. It's just unbearable, he says off camera. It is known that the video shows soldiers from the 503rd Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. This unit is stationed in Ingushetia. However, according to the Russian opposition publication Media Zona, the video was filmed at the Russian military training ground Kadamovsky in the Rostov region. It is located approximately 50 kilometers from the border with the occupied Luhansk region. Russian armed forces try to advance in the area northwest of Poltavka and the northeast of Vladimirovka. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have announced the situation in the Dobropilya region. Thus, Z channels wrote that Putin's army is trying to bypass Vladimirovka in the Sofiyivka area. They are also bypassing the Ukrainian armed forces positions in the Shakovo area. The Russian offensive and the nature of the attacks confirm an August 18th assessment by Ukrainian military observer Konstantin Mashovets, who said that units of the Russian 8th Combined Arms Army were advancing in the area east of Vladimirovka, threatening the flank of Ukrainian forces that were trying to cut off the base of the Russian breakthrough east and northeast of Dobropilya. The base of the breach is relatively narrow compared to its depth and runs along the line Dorozhno-Mayak-Vladimirovka. Mashovets estimated on August the 18th that Russian forces attacking east of Vladimirovka were advancing more slowly than Ukrainian forces. Mashovets reported on August the 19th that fighting had begun for Mayak. This indicates that Russian forces no longer control Mayak and other settlements that form the base of the breakthrough, and that Ukrainian forces are now threatening the very center of the breakthrough. Russian war correspondents claim that Russian troops have also advanced toward Veseloy and that fierce fighting continues in the Zolotoy-Kolodets area. An officer in the Ukrainian brigade operating in the Dobropolye area reported on August the 19th that Ukrainian troops had repelled a Russian attack in the Veseloye area and that Russian troops were trying to bring in reserves to reinforce the breakthrough. Russian breakthrough tactics and low manpower density along the Pokrovskoe front appear to have allowed Russian forces to regain limited tactical maneuver to the east and southeast of Dobropilya, at least temporarily. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces in the Pokrovskoe direction have low manpower density along the front, particularly in the Dobropilya area, and do not have permanent defensive positions but rather intermittent outposts on the front lines. The terrain in the Dobropilya area features wide open fields and a low population density. All of these factors contribute to rapid tactical success, even in a trench warfare environment, allowing Russian forces to attempt a flanking maneuver to support a tactically significant breakthrough. Russian forces do not appear to have established a continuous defensive line within their narrow penetration to the east and northeast of Dobropilya, likely in part due to the infiltration tactics used to achieve the breakthrough. The tactical breakthrough is also a reflection of this low manpower density, and the relatively sparse frontline positions combined with the favorable terrain in the area may allow some degree of tactical maneuver. Russian forces will likely be unable to regain operational maneuverability on the battlefield in the near term, largely due to the threat that Ukrainian drones pose to Russian armor. An attempt by Russians to stage PR at the front in front of cameras ended in disaster for them. The occupiers who went on the attack under the flags of the USA and Russia in the Zaporizhia region were killed in full force. This was reported by the Z propagandists themselves. The Kremlin media reported that the Russians had launched an attack in a trophy American armored personnel carrier flying the American flag, celebrating the successful negotiations between Trump and Putin in Alaska. However, it all ended with the equipment being destroyed and the crew killed along with the landing party. As it turned out later, there was no American armored vehicle there. Amid the crackle of propaganda videos, a Soviet Gaz-71 went into battle, a tracked tractor mass-produced since 1968. 2 crew members and the occupiers' attack aircraft were burned along with the equipment, as reported by Russian war correspondents themselves. Netizens compare the incident to a farce, to march under the flag of the United States, which Russia calls the enemy, and die under a precise Ukrainian strike, most likely carried out with the help of American intelligence. Ironically, the incident occurred against the backdrop of Zelensky's visit to Trump, which gave the situation a grotesque tone. Russia wanted to hype again, and again became a laughingstock. Right social media users recall footage captured the moment Russian troops rode an American MM-13 personnel carrier they captured from Ukrainian forces on August the 12th. The video was shared by Russian propaganda media just days after US President Donald Trump met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska in what Moscow cast as the end of its international isolation. Andriy Yermak, head of Ukraine's presidential office, condemned the video as the height of insolence. Russians are using the symbols of the United States in their own terrorist aggressive war involving the killing of civilians, Yermak wrote on Telegram. Russian propaganda outlets have increasingly praised Trump as a pragmatic peacekeeper while portraying Ukraine, Europe and the UK as obstructionist. Russian media frequently amplify Trump's past claims that either President Volodymyr Zelensky or former US President Joe Biden provoked Russia's war, a narrative that shifts blame from Moscow.